It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, if you look on that gigantic, sharp, interactive board, you see all kinds of logos. You see the logo for Effissimo Capital Private Equity Group, Goldman Sachs, the bankers, Fujifilm, Konica Minolta. You see the logo for a company called Bain & Company, and Bain & Company is a M&A advisory firm. You see the logo for Ricoh. You see the logo for Etra, and we all know that Etra is that joint venture that Ricoh and Toshiba Tech formed in the manufacturing of MFPs. Ladies and gentlemen, I saw some documents that were filed with the Japanese government to the Financial Services Agency, and those documents relate to Effissimo Capital and Konica Minolta, and another document related to Effissimo Capital and Ricoh. And I see that Effissimo Capital has equity positions in both Ricoh and Konica Minolta. And then I started thinking about Effissimo Capital because they used to have an equity position in Toshiba, the conglomerate. And then I started letting my imagination run wild. Because we all know that the industry has to consolidate. We all know it. And it's going to happen. Folks, there's a rumor out there that Ricoh is going to buy Konica Minolta. Well, there's a possibility of that. But we also saw a couple of weeks ago where Konica Minolta sold off Ambry Genetics. And when they sold off Ambry Genetics, that leads me to believe that they will sell off the pieces. So yes, Ricoh could buy some of the pieces. I've been saying for a while that Fujifilm would be the buyer of Konica Minolta. I believe Fujifilm will definitely play a major role in our industry, especially around manufacturing. And I also believe that they'll play a major role in what I would describe as a liquidation of Konica Minolta. So without any further ado, let's jump on the board. I want to share my thoughts. The first thing I want to do is say this. Ricoh buying Konica Minolta reminds me of Kmart and Sears coming together. Without a bigger strategy post cleaning up the mess, I believe Ricoh / Konica Minolta will end as Kmart and Sears a total disaster. I mean, come on. Ricoh, they barely make operating profit. Konica Minolta is still trying to learn how to make operating profit. Those two companies, just be honest, have been run poorly from a financial position over the last many years. And so bringing them together the way they are today, I think would be a train wreck. Bringing them together, being creative with a strategy, involving some other players, well, it could be the way it goes. Here's what I believe. I believe that Effissimo Capital Private Equity Group, along with Goldman Sachs, will do some kind of a roll-up between Konica Minolta and Ricoh. But I also believe that the payout for that investment will be how they clean it up, and then the second bite of what they clean up. There I am sitting in front of the gigantic, sharp, interactive board, and this was December 28th of 2021, and I was doing an episode on private equity getting in the OEM space in our industry. And I did that episode because a company called Effissimo Capital, let me just circle it for you there. You can see it right there on the gigantic, sharp, interactive board. And I was talking about Effissimo Capital. Effissimo Capital back in December of 2021, they had a 19% stake in Ricoh. They had a 9.9% stake in a company called Toshiba. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe Effissimo Capital is going to start doing some things. And folks, shortly after I did this episode, maybe 6 months, I couldn't find where Effissimo Capital had that stake in Ricoh. It didn't mean they didn't have it, I just couldn't find it. And then I came across some filings with the Financial Service Agency in Japan. And guess what I found? Well, let me show you the filings. So here we go. We have Effissimo Capital in a filing with the Financial Services Agency regarding Konica Minolta. Effissimo Capital with a filing with the Financial Service Agency regarding Ricoh. One dated October 9th, the other dated October 22nd. They're written in Japanese, so we have to do a little translating. Let me just get to the bolts and nuts of it. Effissimo Capital owns 5.81% of Konica Minolta, along with a partnership with Goldman Sachs. And the other document regarding Ricoh, Effissimo Capital owns 19.5% of Ricoh, along with their partner Goldman Sachs. So Effissimo Capital, along with Goldman Sachs, has a pretty good stake in Ricoh, has a really good stake in Ricoh, and a pretty good stake in Konica Minolta. Is the goal to bring these things together? I believe it is, but not necessarily the way we might think. And I've been talking about Fujifilm being the one to go in there and gobble up Konica Minolta. So how does all this play out in my mind? Ladies and gentlemen, we got to go back in time first. So remember on that slide where I talked about Effissimo Capital owning 9.9% of Toshiba, the conglomerate? Well, when Toshiba, the conglomerate, wanted to sell itself off to a company, to a consortium, if you will, the Japan Industrial Partners, Effissimo Capital tendered its 9.9% so they could do that. And I have to ask, was there a quid pro quo? Because the announcement for Ricoh and Toshiba Tech to join the joint venture around the manufacturing of MFPs came out May 19th of 2023, and the giving up of the 9.9% was September of 2023. So did Effissimo Capital say, look, we'll go ahead and tender our stuff over to you, but we want to do something one day with this company called Etra. After all, we own 19.5% of Ricoh. Folks, I got to tell you something. The people with the money make the decisions. This company, Bain & Company, Bain & Company is just a mergers and acquisition advisory firm, and I kind of was doing some research on this, and I came across some rumors that Bain & Company is getting together with a company called HH Global to help HH Global, if you will, buy Konica Minolta marketing division. And we all know the Konica Minolta marketing division sits in their professional print division. So that was just interesting. And folks, I have to tell you that the whole talk about private equity ramping up is picking up. And we're going to see some major happenings involving private equity with these OEMs. So what's all this look like? Let me recap what I've talked about so far. We got M&A advisors, Bain & Company, rumored to be shopping around Konica Minolta marketing services, mainly to a company called HH Global. We got the world's largest manufacturer, Fujifilm. I say that because that's where they're going. We have a company called Etra that Ricoh owns 85% of, Toshiba Tech owns 15% of. Will Fujifilm get an equity position in Etra? Will Fujifilm just take Etra over? Will that be part of the strategy when Effissimo Capital brings Ricoh and Konica Minolta together? Will the strategy be, you know what? Let's let Fuji make all of our machines. Because we already know that Fuji makes the machines for Xerox, the largest dealer in the world. We also know that Fujifilm just did a deal with a huge dealer, a company called Marco here in the United States. How much Fuji business will go through Marco, who knows? We also know that Fujifilm, well, they make machines for a company called Caton. They make machines for a company called Sharp. The high-end stuff, I believe that Fujifilm will make all the Sharp machines. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Fujifilm will be the manufacturer along with Canon when it's all said and done. And I also believe that Fujifilm will start making the Konica Minolta and Ricoh machines. Wow, wouldn't that be crazy? Well, if that happens, don't we have to have some changes in the industry? I believe we will, ladies and gentlemen. I believe our industry is heading for the name of the machine is who delivers it to the end user. In other words, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Marco machine. We already see a Xerox machine. We already see the Arriva, I love saying Arriva, the Caton machine. We already see the Sharp machine that's made by Fuji, that high-end stuff. Doesn't say Fujifilm on it, it says Sharp on it. I do believe that Fujifilm will make all the Sharp machines. So if Fujifilm is this major manufacturer, it only makes sense that the differentiator would be those that are delivering it to the end user. Henceforth, we're going to see machines with mega dealers' names on it. They're not going to do this for little dealers. They'll let Caton sell their machines to the little dealers. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, there has to be some landscape changes. Let's dig into this a little bit deeper. The first thing I want to do is set the argument of why Konica Minolta has to go away, because they are they're the most poorly financially run company in our industry. They're projecting to lose $90.7 million for FY 2024, which ends in March of 2025. They're projecting they're going to have an operating profit in the digital workplace of $97.2 million. By the way, that's the same exact amount they're going to have in the professional print. It's like they don't even care. How could that be? This is just so absurd to me. I mean, somebody said, hey, what's the operating profit going to be in digital workplace? It's going to be $97.2 million. Okay, we'll do that in professional print too. They're going to have their healthcare business with $123.1 million operating profit. But I question all of that as they go to corporate, etc., with a $369.4 million loss, bringing the loss for the company down to $90.7 million. In other words, loss, 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 loss. You could almost, when you say loss so many times, you could start adding the word loser. So let's look at this. I believe that Ricoh and Konica Minolta could do some things, especially if it's controlled by Effissimo Capital, a private equity group that could probably make the tough decision. But what if Ricoh bought Konica Minolta's digital workplace business unit? The digital workplace business unit will do $4 billion in revenue. If they merge that Konica Minolta digital workplace unit inside Ricoh's digital services unit, total revenue would be $16 billion for the year. I do have a concern because currently right now Ricoh's digital services business is doing $12 billion. Unfortunately, they can't make any damn money because it's got a 0.3% operating profit. But could they bring this other $4 billion worth of revenue into the digital services business from Konica and cut enough costs to increase that operating profit to make this thing work? Could they do something with the IT business that they currently have and what they would inherit with Konica Minolta's All Covered? Would they spin off All Covered before they put them together? There's a lot at play here. But we know that Konica Minolta's not afraid to spin stuff off. So maybe the whole goal is to spin stuff off. That's not a bad play. What about the professional print business? We know in the professional print business they have production print, industrial print, and marketing services. Well, maybe Ricoh gets Konica Minolta's production print. And then to do Fujifilm a favor, Effissimo Capital says, you take our industrial print, take it from Konica Minolta and take it from Ricoh. Let's be honest, the industrial print business for Konica Minolta and Ricoh is pitiful. I mean, they're going to do about $300 million a year each. So give that to Fuji and focus on production print. Focus on the digital workplace. Clean up all the costs you could clean up from bringing those things together. And hopefully this Bain and Company working with HH Global can make this marketing thing work and go away, because I don't think anybody wants that. But that's $428 million in revenue. Could a different company, could this HH Global, if you will, make that profitable? Do something with that Konica Minolta can't do? This is a strategy, ladies and gentlemen. And Fujifilm plays in it. And Fujifilm plays at the manufacturing, because I do believe they're going to be a major, major controller of manufacturing of MFPs. What percent of stake they take in Etra, who knows? But if Ricoh could just be a dealer like Xerox, if you will, and got rid of all the manufacturing and focused on delivering stuff to the end user, wouldn't that be a better way in an industry that's declining, that's being pressured by innovation? We got to have consolidation. I think the things I share here today, I don't think they're that far-fetched. And some of these pieces are going to come together, I assure you. And some of these pieces will change on the board. But our industry needs to start preparing itself for some major landscape changes. Some major landscape changes. And I'll just wrap it up with this. When I looked at that equity position that Effissimo Capital had with Ricoh and the equity position they had with Konica Minolta, I thought immediately, please don't bring these two together and just leave it at that. Please be creative in how you bring these things together. Please have discipline in how you bring these together. Because we don't need another Kmart and Sears in our industry. And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status